What is up with it, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Around the VLA. My name is Rob St. Clair, joined from Arizona by Vince Zanzuki for the second week in a row to talk about more of what's going on around the VLA, as the show name suggests. Today, we're going over just sort of a summary of VLA Tier 2 on the season, and then taking a look at a very big weekend, April 9th and 10th, when the VLA will be in two places at once, just to kind of break down how those events are going to go, who will be there, how you can follow along with them and all that good stuff. So, Vince, you want to jump right into it with some tier two action?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's start it off.
All right. So, this is a look at the tier two standings right now by division. And just a quick reminder of the format for the teams that are trying to get promoted, they will do so by division. There are different targets for promotion depending on which division you're in, and that is related to the number of teams in each region in tier one. We're trying to keep numbers pretty normalized. So right now, with only two teams in tier one central, that right now is the easiest division to get promoted in. You need either two cup wins or 50 points. The West and the East, you need either three cup wins or 100 points, and that stuff carries year over year. So there's two different columns there for points accrued this season and points cumulatively over the last 2 years since Tier 2 has been part of the league structure. So Swede, for example, 18 points right now in the Central, but they had 5 carryover from last year's VLA Cup, which is why you see them there at 23. So that 23 will be Swede's running year-over-year tally towards potentially getting promoted, but the one for just 2022 will count towards this year's tier 2 championships. If that doesn't make any sense, let us know in the YouTube chat. We are live on YouTube right now. You can ask us any questions in the chat. We can see them and go over anything you guys want to know. So that was just a quick reminder about the format. Before we jump into talking a little bit about each team, we want to remind you about how teams earn points. So it's a little bit of a modification of the way that Tier 1 teams earn points, which is a lot more straightforward. Basically, it's the way that volleyball is scored or standings are done all around the world. If you win in 3 or 4 sets, you get 3 points. If you win in 5, you get 2 points, and if you lose in 5, you get 1 point. But if you're a tier 2 team in the VLA and you score any points against a tier 1 team, you basically get 1 extra point than you would have otherwise. So a tier 2 team losing to a tier 1 team in 5, for example, would get 2 points, not 1. And a tier 2 team beating a tier 1 team in 3 or 4 gets 4 points instead of 3. So a huge benefit there. And then here's just a look at the promotion criteria right now. So the Central Division will almost definitely be the first to promote a team and fill that third spot, because we need some team to join the Chicago Icemen, Indiana's Team Pineapple in the Central. The West and the East already have 3 teams each right now, so that promotion target is a little bit longer of a term thing right now with 3 cup wins and 100 points. And then the last point before we dive in is, like, for example, once a team in the Central gets promoted, if somebody in the Central gets either 2 cup wins or 50 points, then that Central Division promotion target will jump up to what the West and the East is right now, 3 cup wins, 100 points. It's progressive, it scales, and it helps us normalize the number of teams in each division. So with that said, just another look back at the Tier 2 division standings right now. Vince, where do you want to start off with this?
Well, first, I'd like to say that's a fantastic breakdown of the tier two structure right there. It's like you've explained it before to somebody, right?
Thank you. Well, we like to have this all in one place, and credit to yourself and the VLA board for designing such a structure that rewards both quality and quantity and is easy to follow. So everybody wins.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's start right off there with the West. We'll work our way up the rankings right there in the division standings. So I guess we'll start off with Seattle Riptide right there at number 5. And I'll go ahead and start off with Chris Linky and the boys up there in Seattle. They have a blossoming community. Boys volleyball in general in Seattle has been growing. It's something that they haven't quite gotten a state high school or anything like that. There's some clubs up there, but there's nothing as far as NAIA to Division I college. In the Pacific Northwest, the adult community is pretty solid. I've gone up there and played, and they definitely have the ability to compete and field some strong teams. But it's still, I mean, you look at definitely the powerhouses of Southern California and the Illinois area. That's a community that's still very new, let's just say. So Seattle's definitely, I mean, obviously they played the one event. They'll be at VLA Cup, but they are growing, and it's a community that's growing. And with that, the program is in a good place to help the community grow.
Yeah, and even though Riptide there 0-4 with 0 points, they didn't get any points in that West Division Cup. That don't be fooled by that, because that team was actually really good. There were some players there, and just the level of volleyball in general that they played, I was actually extremely impressed by. I think the big thing for them not getting any points was a lack of experience for sure. They were jumping in the deep end with a level of competition that was extremely high, and they didn't quite have the number of bodies that you typically need to walk away from a VLA Cup tournament with some points in the standings. We talked about last week, VLA Cup tournaments, whether it's the regional one or the big one, is a learning curve to get the most out of them and understand how to win them and understand how to construct your roster. And Riptide did a lot of learning at that first one, and they played some good volleyball along the way. So even though it didn't result in any points, I totally echo what you said, Vince, that they're have already created a great foundation for adult volleyball in the Pacific Northwest, which is a pretty solid community. And now they're taking the cream of the crop from up there in the Northwest and putting it on the VLA stage, which is awesome to see. So I would be shocked if they didn't come away with some points at VLA Cup in Indiana, knowing what they know now.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's one of the things too, is they weren't intending initially to play the VLA Cup. They played the West Division Cup, and they intended initially for that to be their only tournament of the year. But they took a very strong positive out of playing in the West Division Cup, and they're going into the VLA Cup, which is fantastic. We were hoping for that kind of result from the teams competing. So we get excited about teams that want to play more.
Yep, couldn't agree more. So moving on in the West, just up the standings to the NorCal Tall Ones. So Coach Donnie and the boys from Northern California played both in Orange County in January, and they came to Chicago and played. And this is the moral of the story for me for the Tall Ones. Again, they don't quite have the depth that you need to really be one of the tier 2 contenders right now, but another team that plays together a lot, that really has their identity and plays really smart, mature volleyball. But the takeaway for me is that they've come away with 7 points from those two events, and that proves to me the importance of every single match in a VLA Cup tournament, consolation included, because that's where the Tall Ones did a lot of their damage in Chicago. They came back and won some pretty incredible 5-setters, 2 in a row in consolation against Cleveland and Madison Inferno, those last 2 matches in Chicago, and they walked away from that with 4 points, which, even though those were consolation matches, they were out of the bracket at that point. They still matter a lot for overall points and cumulative points and all that stuff. So shout outs to the Tall Ones for not just giving up once they were eliminated from the bracket, still continuing to play great volleyball despite kind of a thin roster.
Well, just like you talked about the learning curve right there, right? NorCal Tall Ones, they have figured out how to get some wins, how to get some points, and they played, like you said, 2 inexperienced teams with Inferno and Team ECV, and that kind of proves exactly that, is that there's a learning curve going into these tournaments, that you got to try to find ways to not just win, obviously, your pool or your bracket, but those consolation matches absolutely matter. And obviously, Tall Ones took away 2 victories there, 2 5-setters, and grabbed 7 points, and or have 7 points now overall. I think they grabbed 4 overall then. But right there, it's a team that's battling and laying their foundation for the future, and that's exactly what you like to see.
Yep, that's what it's all about. They've got an awesome social media following. Coach Donnie does a really good job with media on the Elevate Yourself channel and all that. They're world renowned on the internet, actually. So shout outs to them. We love having the Tall Ones in the VLA. Moving on to the West Coast Brigade. Coach Ken Martinez and Jacob Martinez out of Costa Mesa are really rising pretty quickly with this Brigade team. They're, I think, the only team that I know of who will be at all 3 Division Cup tournaments. So they're making the trip to Buffalo in a couple weeks, which is just incredible. And they've played flashes of elite level volleyball. They have really some high level talent. size, big names from big name programs. It's the consistency though for them and sort of the little attention to detail sort of things like just taking care of free ball execution, service, like ace to error ratios, just some of the little things like making too many unforced errors. Just a little bit of sloppy play for them has prevented them from being even higher in the standings. But they're immediately jumping into the league and going for both quality and quantity, playing all three events so far.
Yeah, they looked amazing in that first tournament. They came out and really gave it to Sport Connects, and had a lot of. I mean, we talked about that. Was a 5 point comeback or 7 point
Yeah, I
comeback?
think it was 24-19 Brigade over Sport Connects are and tied 1-1. They would have guaranteed themselves some points out of that before Nick Iarfino went on an insane service run. Like that's the type of team we're talking about. They had one of the best teams in Tier 1 on the ropes.
Right, exactly. And so you look at how they made a splash. I gotta say it, without Noah Lissandro, that didn't help them in Chicago. I think that having him in there definitely changes the game. I think he's one of the best middles out there.
Yeah,
And
6'10" monster from Concordia. He was great at West Division Cup. And also want to shout out Carlos Rivera out of Long Beach State, one of the best setters in the league in either division.
yeah, absolutely. Carlos Rivera. I actually got to play against Carlos Rivera when he was playing in college, when he was playing for Long Beach State, and Ascension would go and play Long Beach State consistently for preseason. And I mean, the kid can move the ball,
Oh yeah.
and an absolute dangerous setter. I think he's found a nice place in with West Coast Brigade. I think he suits them very well as a leader. And I think that he's a guy that is going to be someone we're going to hear about a lot uh, throughout the years with the VLA. He's definitely a high level. He's right up there with some of the best in Tier 2 particularly, but definitely in Tier 1 as well. So
Yeah.
I like the what they're doing there. I like that they are all in with the VLA, and they that 8 points. I think that they came up a little empty-handed out of Chicago, but they're going to be contenders here soon, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. Carlos Rivera is the perfect piece for them to build around. They can really construct their team around that just rock of a setter. And he's young, he's great, he's reliable. That's the perfect fundamental piece for them. So I'm excited to see what they do in Buffalo because they can, if they bring the right combination of guys, and if they continue to build them what they've done the last two tournaments, they could make some noise out there.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
moving on to Emiola out of Hawaii. So Emiola and Ruckus in kind of the same management network, but two distinctly different teams. Emiola, unfortunately for them, has run into Ruckus in both of the cup tournaments so far, but has played largely some pretty darn good volleyball. They've been Ruckus kind of play a similar style of just elite level ball control, stellar defense, balanced offense with just generally not very many weaknesses. Ruckus just has a little bit more firepower than them on average, and then I'd say Emiola has gotten a little unlucky. Like they ran into a Chicago Icemen team in Chicago that had unexpectedly lost in pools and had to play them in the round of 12. Like that's just kind of a tough break. So Vince, what are your takes from Emiola, especially having seen them in Southern California earlier?
Yeah, I think that a few of them obviously play Surgeon Dosden and Connor
Connor.
Doherty coming from Ascension and playing with them. They're a solid team. They have a tough time, as opposed to some of them. They have a tough time beating the Tier 1 teams.
Yeah.
They've played Rising Tide. They've played Iceman. They've well, I guess that would have been sorry, Ruckus
And
in
Ruckus,
pool
yeah.
play. And it's coming across those teams. I mean, they beat Ascension in the consolation match. So grabbed 4 points from us. They swept us 3-0. But at the same time, like I think that they, like you said, they're running into teams early in tournaments that because of their seeding, they're not really quite over to being able to overcome those matches early, and they're competing with them for sure, but they're not finishing them out. And so, because of where they're kind of placed and seated in the tournaments, they're kind of taking their lumps early against the stronger teams. But I think that they're one of those teams that, as they find their place, find their niche, not having to play a Tier 1 team or a top Tier 2 team right off the bat, and they're going to be playing maybe a little bit, a comparable tier two team, get their feelings a little bit more throughout a tournament. They become pretty dangerous that way.
Yeah, and they're really talented. It's only a matter of time until a roster of that talent and that experience starts to punch above their weight class, at least more so than they've done so far. Like Ethan Siegfried on the left, another Long Beach State kid, national champion there. Kaveen Vaz on the right, Kyle Radecki on the right. Like Race Munger in the middle has been really good. So is Connor Doherty, your boy. Serge, Liam Maxwell playing both up and down with Ruckus and Emiola. Evan La Rochelle sometimes at libero. I think the only thing they've really got to figure out is a setter consistently. Either like just pick David Grandy or Jeff Schmitz and roll with one of them and just have that guy run the show. But that with you can see how the pieces on that team fit together, and it's really only a matter of time until Emiola starts to make some noise.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that 10 points right there is definitely I'm sure that they're a much better team than the 10 points they got. They're not a 3-5 team. They're
I agree.
definitely a above 500 team. I think by probably the end of the season.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that leaves us with Ruckus, the dynasty that is Socal Ruckus, 10-0 on the year, 2 out of 2 for VLA Cup tournaments this year, plus the VLA Cup from last year. As we know, they are not in it to get promoted because they were offered promotion last year and chose to stay in Tier 2 where they are, which is why they don't have any carryover points from last year. They're just in it to win. They want to come to tournaments, they want to win them, and they want to go home. And that is totally fine because they're so good and they give us such a phenomenal product. We talked about them on last week's show as we were wrapping up the Central Division Cup. So there's not really that much more to say about Ruckus. But Vince, do you see them right now coming into the VLA Cup in Indiana and winning another one? Or do you think that somebody else, Tier 1 or Tier 2, rises up and beats them?
I think they definitely have a number on their back, target on their back, sorry. And I know that teams are going to be gunning for them, where I think that last year's VLA Cup, I don't think that teams necessarily were. I think everyone knew they were good. I don't think they realized how good they were. I don't think they even knew how good they were
I think that's true.
going into the VLA Cup.
Yeah.
And then obviously, I think that West Division Cup was a test for them, not really a challenge. And then obviously the Central Division Cup was I feel like if I'm just gonna say it, I think Iceman underachieved. I think that they were the team that
sure.
definitely can contend with them the best. I think they match up with them the best. However, I'm not going to take anything away from the teams that were playing against them. Swede definitely had their opportunity, and they're going to go against there's 8 tier 1 teams, and we always talk about how it's not necessarily the tier 1 better than the tier 2, this or that, it's the commitment level things. But I mean, in all honesty, tier 1 is tier 1 for a reason, and those teams are going to be bringing their best players. You're going to get a lot of guys back from overseas. Ruckus is going to get a lot of guys from overseas.
Yes, they
and
are.
It's going to be an unbelievable tournament, the VLA Cup. And that's obviously the next time we'll see Socal Ruckus, and it's going to be one of the most epic battles tournaments probably that we've ever seen in the United States as far as pro level volleyball, outside of obviously the VNL and national team.
Right. Yeah. I think we said the same thing, or I definitely said the same thing going into last year's VLA Cup. And this one, the number of teams is almost doubling, going from 11 to 20, and just the level. And just now that there's been a year's worth of cup tournaments to kind of set the expectation and set the tone for events like that, that's going to be unbelievable. So we'll preview that a lot more coming into VLA Cup, but I think that's a pretty good summary for Ruckus right now. So that wraps up the West, excuse me. You want to move on to the Central?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, actually, I'd like to point out one thing. We talked just briefly, or I just briefly mentioned the tier 1 and tier 2 product and whatnot. We do get asked a lot of questions about the difference between tier 1 and tier 2. And the truth of the matter is, obviously Ruckus is a tier 1 caliber. Tier 1 is intended to be the highest of professional levels. And some teams just aren't open for the commitment yet. And obviously we're hoping that through a few years of growth in the league, we hope that it's a little bit more enticing to become tier 1, obviously. But one thing that I'd like to point out, the numbers do clearly show in favor of tier one still being the stronger of the two. 32 wins from tier one versus 17 wins of tier two in competition with each other. And so I, I I think that and to also note that Socal Ruckus isn't responsible for all those wins. So Ruckus is 6-2 against tier one teams, which is fantastic overall. They did lose two to Phoenix Ascension, and they're in their infancy, their first. But obviously the Socal Ruckus that we know now has been 6-0 and pretty much rolling ever since. And but a lot of those wins aren't coming just from Ruckus. It's not like one team's out there dominating. You're getting Swede beating teams. You're getting obviously Dive. Slunkers has a victory, and so
River City Flow, yeah.
yep. And Flow is obviously a dangerous team to see first round. They've knocked off two tier one teams in their both of their cups opening matches, and so that's the thing is these teams are definitely there. The talent is definitely there. It's the depth really. Some of these teams do have to kind of build their programs a little bit more, which is the purpose of tier two,
Yeah, that's
where
the
they
point.
can where they can find their footing. They can build their brands and attract more players, higher quality, a little bit deeper rosters, and that's what's going to carry them through these cup events. And then eventually, when they get to tier one or when they offer promotion for tier one, they can compete at these 4-match events every weekend at the highest caliber.
Very, very well said. I think that's a great summary of the how the league treats the two-tier system and how the numbers and just the performances of all the teams are backing up exactly what we want the model to be so far. We couldn't be happier about the balance between tier one and tier two and how anytime they meet, it's so competitive because the tier two teams understand the extra point that they can get out of it. The tier one teams sometimes sleepwalk them, and they're slowly learning that you can't afford to do that. And it's great. It's been so fantastic for the league so far to have this two-tier system, and it's really proven itself out this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move on to Madison Inferno, huh?
Yeah, so speaking of Madison Inferno, they're doing a little scrimmage against Milwaukee Dive on Friday night, sponsored by the Badger Region Volleyball in Milwaukee, or just in the whole state of Wisconsin. I think they're playing in Milwaukee, but Inferno is popping up and becoming pretty active. So they're associated with the Madison Inferno Junior Boys Club in Madison, Wisconsin. I mean, obviously, they have the University of Wisconsin, who just won a women's national championship this past December. So that town is no stranger to volleyball. And Inferno were honestly a pleasant surprise in Chicago. They had some extremely close matches. I think they went like 38-36 against New York Pride in the first set of one of their matches, which was ridiculous. It was either them or ECV. I couldn't remember who that was. They ended up beating ECV in pools. They lost a close 5-setter to the tall ones in consolation. And there was some pretty good volleyball played from Inferno throughout. So just to have two representatives in the state of Wisconsin between them and Milwaukee Dive, and that is a underrated volleyball community nationally that not a lot of people talk about. I'm super stoked about them.
Yeah, and seeing that kind of competitiveness up in that area, I think that you can judge a community based off of rumors or previous representation, right? I mean, when you see a team just kind of come out of the ashes like they have, no pun intended.
Good one.
Yeah, I mean, it's they created a team and they're doing all the right things to build a brand, build their, like you said, the boys community, and they're getting out there and they're doing a great job of competing. And I think that they're going to get stronger. They're going to build the level in that area of Milwaukee, of Chicago. I mean, it's already so strong and so competitive in the Central Division. But you throw a team like that in there, and it's just going to make everyone, hey, we got to make sure that we're on our toes here. They're not a team to sleep on, and it's whether or not they climb the ladder or not, I don't know if they have quite the talent to compete with some of the other Swede and Dive where they're kind of at. But I think that if they approach it the right way, you can see them blossom and their community is going to grow, and they have a lot of a high ceiling, I think.
Yeah, I agree. So sort of similarly, I want to talk about the 630 Slunkers next because even though they're ahead of Milwaukee Dive by 1 point, 12 versus 11, they've played double the number of matches. And I think that tells you the caliber of team that Milwaukee Dive is. So we'll talk about them in a second. But the Slunkers are another one that are attached to a junior club. So 630 is a boys club in the southwestern Chicago suburbs that is pretty good. Their 18-1s team this year is outputting some serious Division One talent. Like they are a legitimate factory, a young and up and coming factory of great boys volleyball in Chicagoland. And they're picking up some sort of like Benedictine NAIA characters, some North Central, a couple Dominican, like a couple of the D3 NAIA, even some Carthage, but those guys are more likely to play for either Milwaukee or Swede or even Icemen in some cases. But there is a lot going on in Chicago. I know this very well. I'm surrounded by the volleyball community here all the time, and the Slunkers, they set the tone just so strongly out in California when they finished third in that tournament. They beat Vince's Ascension team in 5. They pushed Ruckus to 5, I think, twice. They were just tremendous, just coming out of nowhere and really unexpected. People kind of slept on them, and then I think in Chicago, people didn't quite sleep on them as much. They knew that they were a team that had to be respected, so Pineapple was able to beat them pretty convincingly in pools. But the 630 Slunkers are on a similar path with Madison. They're just the junior club that they're attached to is a little bit more developed and has more of a talent pool. But other than that, I think there's a lot of similarities between those two teams.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously I saw 630 Slunkers firsthand, unfortunately. um, and there's a strong community out of that group, right? And it's just like what we're talking about. Our teams are not just building. We're just not one-off teams. We don't want that. We want the community, and the strongest one is going to come out on top of these teams. And so, Slunkers is doing a lot of the right things, like we said. Inferno's very active. 630 Slunkers very active, and that's exactly what we're looking for in the league. But then also, that's what benefits them. They're going to be recognized a little bit more. Teams or players are going to want to play for them. You see the results. Obviously, they had a little bit of I think that they played where they should probably at Chicago. I think they played above their level
Yeah, I agree.
in Seal Beach. But the thing is that they're going to consistently get better. They're going to consistently get points, and they're going to be a factor in the VLA for years to come. And it's exciting to see because they do, they can go places for sure.
They can, and they've got some great structure behind them. Nick Maruyama, just one of the top dogs in the 630 club, has put a lot of resources into the Slunkers, and Mike LeGros, outstanding setter. They don't have all that much size in terms of their team, but they do have a lot of just great arms and ball control skill, and I really like their play style. So shout out to the Slunkers. However, I do think there are levels to the Tier 2 Central Division right now, and it's Swede and Milwaukee Dive who are the two main contenders to get promoted. And like we talked about before, the Central Division right now has the easiest or the lowest promotion criteria at 50 points cumulatively or 2 VLA Cup tournament wins. That includes like any of the division cups, the big VLA Cup, or Tier 2 championships counts for that as well. So Dive, in their first event, played 5 matches only and already have 11 points. That is crazy. They took Ruckus to 5, lost 16-14. They crushed Emiola. They crushed Team Pineapple in a quarterfinal match. They then lost in 4 to Ruckus again, and they beat someone else in a play-in game, like convincing West Coast Brigade. They mopped the floor with those guys. That was easy. Milwaukee Dive has been put together so quickly by Chandler North. Huge credit to him. Him, Tyler Wills, Ian Zalewski, Pat Beezer, Jacob Schmiegel. Like there's just tons and tons of talent in Milwaukee. They have come together as a group and as a team really, really fast. Already have 11 points on the board. Swede had a head start on them in terms of having played last year and having played those 4 matches in January. But Dive are right on their heels, and especially with what we're going to talk about with them being in Louisville later, they are a contender to even leapfrog Swede and get promoted first.
Yeah, but similar story with Milwaukee Dive is they did slightly run out of steam at the end of the Central Division Cup, right? And so that is something that they do need to kind of address. I think that I think they have the players up there to do it. I just don't think that they've quite established themselves yet. But that's the thing that makes them so dangerous is that they will be able to grow, and they may not be able to catch Swede. I mean, Swede's going to be playing. They're going to finish the season out. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I mean, it really honestly depends on Swede more so than Dive, I think.
I agree.
But the thing is that Milwaukee Dive is a team to be feared in the tier two, and like you're pointing out, they're one of three teams in tier two that have a winning record right now. It's Ruckus, Swede, and Dive. So, oh, sorry, Inflow. Sorry,
Yeah, flow.
one of four teams. Sorry. But yeah, I mean, you just look at how they jumped into it, and they didn't play a weak schedule by any means. What both of those losses, I mean, it's Ruckus right there. So, you can't say enough about what Dive already did. And it's going to be exciting to see how they do in Louisville, and then obviously seeing what they can do in the VLA Cup. But again, I still think that they need a little bit more depth. They really rode some of their guys pretty hard, and it did affect them when it came tournament time.
Yeah, I agree. Just a couple more pieces, and then that Louisville event where they're going to play really a tier one style regular season weekend. I'm curious to see how they hang in with that and what they can learn from that going into VLA Cup. Because like if you're a tier one team and you draw Milwaukee Dive in your pool, you are not going to be happy about that matchup because that team is scary. Moving on to Swede. Speaking of teams that are scary, they go all the way to the finals of the Central Division Cup. They had multiple match points. They were up on Ruckus 2-0. Like they really, and I know those guys are disappointed with the fact that they didn't win that tournament, but just going as far as they did and playing the level of volleyball that they did was amazingly impressive. We saw it back in January. They swept Team Pineapple. They took 2 points from the Icemen by losing in 5. Then they had completely leveled up playing near their home in Chicago. They sweep the Icemen in the quarters. They beat a really good River City Flow team in 5 to get to Ruckus, and they even get points out of that despite not winning the tournament. So Swede's been incredible. Ethan Klosak might be the best pound for pound player in the VLA. He's like 6 foot nothing and just bangs on the outside. He's tremendous, super springy, unbelievable arm. And then conversely, Chris Bulava, who's my former college teammate from Purdue, like a college club kid who's just a rail skinny 6'7" kid. They've figured out that he shouldn't be an opposite. He should be an outside hitter where he played all of college. And he was unbelievable in Chicago as well. They're big in the middle with Mike Boduk. They've got 2 great setters. They've got Austin Overby on the right. They've got Eric Krizak, who's an elite level libero. This team is complete. And I'm really curious to see what they do in Buffalo because that's a tournament that I wouldn't be that stunned if they were in the finals or maybe even if they won it.
Yeah, I could see it. And obviously, something to point out about Swede is that they're one of three teams, them, LVC, and Socal Ruckus, to actually have beaten Pineapple and Chicago Iceman.
In VLA history.
Yeah, there's 25 teams in the league, and only 3 teams have beat both of those teams, and so and they've done it, and so. And they did in the same tournament, right? So, they're definitely they're on the path. They're on the right path, right? The only thing that would stand in their way, in my opinion, is themselves. I think that they're set up with the East Division Cup. I think that if they can grab 9, 10, 10 points. I mean, it's a tall ask to ask some team to grab 10 points out of a tournament, right? But at the same time, I think that if they can just stay steady from here on out, make it to VLA Cup, get some wins there, they go to Tier 2 championships. They potentially win the Tier 2 championships. Maybe as long as they stay steady and consistent from here, I definitely think they earn promotion this season. But again, it's up to them to make the to play that way. It's up to them to make it happen. So they're really the only ones that stand in their own way. I think that they kind of choose their path, and I think what Swedes accomplished so far, it would be a huge disappointment for themselves if They don't get the job done, and Milwaukee Dive leapfrogs them for
Catches them.
whatever reason, and because I think that they're definitely set up to make it happen, and I know that Swede wants it. So I think that it's not nothing's 100%, but if I was a betting man, which I am, if anyone want to take that bet with me, my money's on Swede right now to be the first team to get into that Central Division.
Yeah, and you better believe that they're motivated after losing that VLA Cup final in Chicago to Ruckus that they really thought they should have won, and they're not wrong about that. They had multiple match points to win the tournament. They are as motivated as ever, so I'm excited to see what they do the rest of the season. Moving on to the East, we've got two teams there at the bottom with zeros across the board because they haven't played yet. Niagara Frontier will be making their debut in their home gym in Buffalo. I'm excited to see what sort of a team that they can field playing at home. Indocan, unfortunately, from north of the border in Toronto, had to drop out of the East Division Cup. So the first time we'll see them is in Indiana at VLA Cup, which I'm excited about. I wish we had gotten a little more data on them going into it, but they had a couple complications come up with their roster and then traveling across the border. So we will see Indocan in Indiana in May, but we don't have anything to talk about them yet. That places us at Team ECV. So Cleveland, East Side Cleveland Volleyball Club is what ECV stands for. They're associated with a junior club as well. The Coughlin brothers, all three of them, including our legendary photographer Todd, run the show for that group of guys. And they already have instilled kind of an organizational structure that is exactly what the league likes to see. I know Vince and I have both been really impressed by just the way that they're running their organization and some of the talent from the state of Ohio and Pittsburgh that they've been able to draw. However, finishing dead last in Chicago is not what they wanted. They have 3 points because 3 of their 4 losses were in 5. And all 3 of those games were games they probably shouldn't have lost given the talent on their team. So I expect better things from ECV in Buffalo. I think that they're really going to legitimately surprise some people who have only seen the 0-4 so far. But I hope that they can take some lessons from the disappointment that was Chicago, given the roster that they have.
Yeah, and you go back to what you said about them and the way they've built their program. They're designing it the way that they should. And obviously, Todd has been around us a very long time. So if anyone has any insight on how to build a model program, I'm sure he's been looking at and critiquing all of us for the longest time, and now he's got the opportunity, and he's definitely going for it. Unfortunately for them, yeah, going 0-4 in that first one. But I wrote on the VLA rankings page, 3 5-set losses equals a win. So here they are with
yeah, the math adds up.
Yeah, here they are with 3 points, and they didn't go out empty-handed. They definitely had opportunities to win all 3 of those matches, and unfortunately they didn't. But at the same time, again, we talk about that learning curve, right? And I don't think that they're going to take away things from that, and they have a strong community up there, and a lot of guys involved, and they're very motivated. So I don't see between where they sit in the East. They might sit there in a while, especially when we talk about the next team. But I see them being a top 3 team for quite some time right there. But hopefully after this season, I think what's going to happen is they're going to up their game quite a bit. And I think that 2023 will be more telling of what they're able to accomplish.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's a learning experience for them jumping in their first season. They'll have a whole off season to build and figure out how to attack next season to really earn some legitimate points there. So I'm looking forward to that. I want to talk about New York Pride next, if that's okay with you. You see them at 4-5, 12 points this year, 15 points total. They got 3 points from last year's VLA Cup. And this is a team that's in it for the long haul. They traveled to California for West Division Cup. They traveled to Chicago. They unfortunately won't be in Buffalo, which unfortunately is just the closest one geographically for them. But they've had some key injuries. Both their usual setters aren't healthy at the moment, so we won't see them in Buffalo after all. But they are just grinding out event by event with just doing what they can in each event. They probably know that they're not going to go into a VLA Cup tournament and win the tournament, but they understand the format in that every match matters. So every little point that they can grab here and there, consolation matches in pools, 5-set losses, whatever. Terrence and the boys will take points however they can get them. And they've had flashes of really good volleyball as well. So they're building a program slowly but surely. They're not going to be one of the first to get promoted. I think that I definitely don't think they're going to be the first team promoted in the East when we talk about River City Flow in a second, but Pride is slowly but surely building something from rock solid fundamentals and building a group of guys that they'll be able to rely on more consistently in the next couple years. And that is one of several very valid and perfectly good methods of operating as a tier 2 team.
Yeah, you're going to see consistent growth out of Pride, and that's exactly what you're going to get. You're going to get consistent and competitiveness out of them. You know, they are going to be at everything. Like you said, unfortunately, Buffalo, the closest one to them. You know, you'll see them in full force in California, but yeah, unfortunately, couldn't make it to Buffalo. But yeah, you know, they're a team again. They're in it for the long haul. They're consistently improving. They're beating the teams that talent-wise they're actually comparable to. I don't think that they've had that match where like a Swede has beat someone better than them, or or even Milwaukee Dive jumping out and beating a team that, you know, maybe, or like Flo beating Iceman. You know, I don't think Flo is necessarily the better team than Iceman, but Flo definitely brought it that match and won. I haven't seen Pride quite upset a team yet, but they're making sure they handle the teams that they should beat, and or even the teams that are even with them they're beating. And I believe they beat West Coast Brigade, which a team that, you know, I think is pretty dangerous, but they go out and beat them, and it's like, okay, right there, that proves the value, or that the team can compete, and they're going to continue to gobble up points. And do I think that they are the first in the East to get promotion? I think that Flo has just got way too much talent. I think that they are, if they can get a little bit more depth, then they will. They definitely are the team that's gonna do it. But right now, I do see that Pride, you know, maybe the next one that gets in if they continue to do what they do.
Yep, I think they've set a path. They've got a strategy. They're going to stick to it, and I'm excited to see what they do, who they bring to VLA Cup, and what they can do next year, just even to build on that consistency. Last but not least, River City Flow. We just aforementioned a minute ago talking about them and their rebrand this offseason. They were Legion Black, or LVC's second team last year. They have separated. They're under their own umbrella based out of Richmond, Virginia, and they are awesome. 10 points from Central Division Cup alone. 10 points in 4 matches is just amazing. They have a 5-set loss to Swede, and the semifinals was their only loss. Amazing win over the Icemen. Just incredible. And I can't remember who they played. I think they played New York Pride, actually, and beat them in 4 in the quarterfinals in that tournament.
Quarterfinals,
yep. Yeah, and they beat West Coast Brigade as well, full points there. They were awesome. Their only issue, like you just said, was they only had 8 guys. They literally had 8 bodies. So every one of those guys played pretty much every point of all 4 of those matches, because James Hosley was the backup libero, came in service sub, played a little bit of lib, but all of their guns, their wings, their mills, and their setter, Nick Drucker, played pretty much every point of that tournament. That's not super sustainable. Other than that, they have the talent in a starting lineup's worth of talent of most tier 1 teams right now.
Yeah, you know, and we've seen it. Like I said, VLA Cup last year came out and took it to us. And then first round they come in, Central Division Cup, they take it to Iceman. And, you know, and it just shows they have the starting lineup that can go and win matches, right, against tier 1 teams. But do they have the starting lineup in a second, third, fourth match that can play against those tier 1 teams, right? So that's obviously the issue, but that's also the whole point of the tier 2 structure. I've talked extensively with Sam Albus. I've talked a little bit with James Hosley, and Flo is definitely in this to get that promotion. However, they're also in it to, you know, I think they understand too that they need to build their community a little bit. They got to build their brand. They're doing a lot of the right things out there in Richmond. But there's hopefully some guys, Virginia Tech club guys. They actually just had a huge victory to win their division in club. Congrats
Yeah,
to
they
them.
beat Liberty. Liberty is one of the best teams in the country, and Vodtech beat them in the finals. Yeah, that's some very, very good college club ball being played on the East Coast.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of talent out there. It's just for the younger talent uh, to reckon and for Flo to get out there and reach that talent to try to build their roster. And I think that they have the ability. I think they got obviously the starting lineup in place. They just got to find those role guys that can come in and give a Sam Albus a match off. So he's only got to play maybe three and still not lose anything from it. And so the other thing too is they got to look at this approach, especially playing in these cups. If they're gonna get to that next level, they got to be looking to play 5 matches, not just the 4, like you do in a tier 1 structure.
Yep.
So, and I think that, like, again, we see that they definitely have that talent. They're going to be absolutely deadly up in the East Division Cup. I think that they are a team that all comers should be looking out for. But I'm very excited for them and how they're going to progress. I don't see East Division team Division Cup. It's
Evanston,
not
tier 2.
impossible, but it's a tall order for them. I think that they will most likely it will be a 2 to 3 year process for them, but I think that they definitely are the team that can do it.
Yeah, agreed. So just to address some of my Canadian boys in the chat, we got Mikey and Everett, both from Toronto. Everett's saying Toronto Indocan is going to be legit, bunch of OUA guys, which is like the Ontario elite college province. And one of the top guys in Denmark, who's your former U Sports champion, which is their equivalent of the NCAA. So yeah, Indocan definitely has some talent, but unfortunately they will not be in Buffalo. So we'll have to see what they do in Indiana. Where is River City? River City is just, I guess, a nickname for Richmond in Virginia. I hadn't heard that before, but it is a pretty cool name, and their jerseys are cool, so we'll take it.
Yeah, we're gonna let it slide.
Yep. All right, so that does it for all of our all tier 2 teams. I think we went over the situation with all pretty well. We're on tier 2 teams. Let's talk about the East Division Cup. So we let you know earlier in the show that New York Pride and Toronto Indocan will no longer be in Buffalo. That leaves 8 teams. The pools have been reformatted. We'll get these out on Instagram next week for sure. But that leaves one pool has Team LVC, the 1 seed, Swede, the 2, Flow, the 3, and Niagara Frontier, the 4 seed in that pool. So bracket pool style, 1 will play 4, 2 will play 3, then winners play, losers play. So that Swede versus Flow first match of that tournament will be crazy. The other pool, Boston Bounce, Northeast Force, West Coast Brigade, and Cleveland, UCV in that order. So Boston versus Cleveland, Northeast Force versus Brigade, then winners play, losers play in that order. Then pretty simple seeding into quarterfinals, semis, and finals. That'll be it. Honestly, a pretty simple tournament structurally, hosted at Niagara Frontier April 9th and 10th. I love that place. That gym is awesome. I love hosting events there. DJ, Rocco, great guys from the Niagara Frontier Club in West Seneca. They love having us. I'm very excited to be there. And without Ruckus at this tournament, Vince, it's pretty much a wide open ball game. I could see LVC. I think LVC's got to be the favorite. I could see Bounce winning this tournament. I could see Swede or Flow winning this tournament. What are your thoughts on it, just on court?
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say this, and we haven't talked about which match we're gonna open with on the YouTube channel, because obviously members it's a members only event. So we do show that one feature in the morning to get everything kicked off, and I'm gonna have to ask you, do we go with the Swede and Flow rematch?
I think we have to.
Yeah, I
They
think
just
we're announcing it right now. We're making a decision right here
right
on
here,
live
right now.
YouTube. Right now, I think that we got to make that the first match, the opening match of the tournament, and that's going to be I mean, that's going to be such an amazing match,
Oh.
and we can't charge you for it. The world's got to see this.
Agreed.
So,
I mean, a rematch of a 5-setter that they played in the semifinals of a tournament in Chicago, we've got give to the people. I agree. So look forward to that one. But I'm glad you brought up the members only situation, because that is how you can follow every single match. It was the same way in Chicago. We streamed all 4 courts, every single match, only for members, except a select few. We'll do the same thing in Buffalo. So that match, Swede versus Flo, as we've just decided just now, that'll be the public one for the day. Maybe we put one of the quarterfinals that evening on for public. But if you want to watch every single match, you can pay us a whopping 99 cents here on YouTube. Press the join button next to the subscribe button that you should have already pressed, and you can pay us 99 cents and watch every single match. So that's how you can follow along with East Division Cup. We will have more information on that tournament next week. But yeah, it's pretty simple. 2 pools of 4, 8 team. Everyone makes the bracket. Straight up 8 quarterfinalists. Play it through, and we'll have a winner by early Sunday afternoon. And that Flo versus Swede match on Saturday morning will definitely be a tone setter.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, going back to predictions and whatnot, I mean, yeah, you can't discredit what Team LVC is going to bring. They're going to have their boys Marshman and Leeson back.
Oh, is that true? Are those guys going to be back by then? That's crazy. Oh, I see him on the roster. Uh-oh.
You see him up there, right?
do.
And I'm excited to see how they play with Jovi Ramos, and and obviously they're going to have.
Ooh, they're getting Greg Petty back too. Oh man, it'd be crazy for that team not to win that tournament. Nick Smith coming back from Turkey. Yikes!
Yeah.
Wow.
It's going to be an exciting Team LVC, something that honestly we haven't seen shoot since probably 2020 at when they had Cody Kessel playing outside. So I think this will probably be the best Team LVC team that we've seen in the VLA, and I think that I just don't see that you cannot pick them as the favorite. However, I digress. We thought the same way about Chicago last week, and they hosted, and or last tournament they hosted, and they did not fare so well. So I do wish Hosley and the boys a little bit better fate than that. So.
Well, if they learned anything from Tim, then they should have taken some lessons about how to manage their roster, because Tim made some mistakes with that roster in the Flo match, or in the Swede match, excuse me, and Iceman paid for it. So I hope that put the rest of the Tier 1 teams on notice in tournaments like this, that you can't sleepwalk at any bracket match ever.
Hey, but stats don't lie. Chris Hosley at opposite, still
undefeated as a starter.
6-0 in VLA history. So the guy is undefeated. You can't beat him. I just got to point that out.
I think he's found the loophole of subbing himself in the second point of the match, so it doesn't count against that record. If they
is that what happens? Yeah, just in case.
Just in case. Yeah, love Hos. Yeah, so I'm excited to see, potentially we might get the battle of the Hosleys, because if Flo is able to beat Swede, I would have to assume that LVC will beat Niagara Frontier, and then Flo and LVC would then play for the title in that pool, which would be very fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully they both start that one. If not, then staring at each other from the bench won't be as fun.
I'll make that happen. Don't worry. So I will be in Buffalo, by the way. I will not be in Louisville. That is the other event we have going on that exact same weekend, April 9th and 10th, at the JVA World Challenge. This is a massive, massive juniors event. Probably the biggest one that we'll be at all year, other than like AAUs in Orlando, like nationals. This event is gigantic. So many junior teams, so many bodies in that convention center, and the Central Division is going to be putting on a show. So Iceman and Pineapple, obviously out of Tier 1, and Milwaukee Dive playing up in a Tier 1 regular season event, the same way that Swede did back in January, where they were able to beat Team Pineapple and take Iceman to 5. Very similar structure here, a double round robin, 6 matches total. Each team will play each other twice. The matches from this tournament will not be streamed on YouTube. It's very important to note that. We'll be posting about it on Instagram and such throughout the weekend just to update you with scores, but you will not be able to watch those matches live, partly because we've got the East Division Cup going on, but also because streaming in a convention center of that size with that much just network traffic is a true and utter nightmare, especially with neither Vince or I being there. We're just going to record the matches, and we will have a cool way to present them on YouTube after the fact. And I'll spare the details just to make it a little bit exciting, but I promise we'll have a pretty fun way to show you all 6 matches from this Central Division event in Louisville after the fact. So that's how you won't be able to watch them live. You will be able to watch them after the fact. I think this is going to be a bloodbath, Vince. I think these 3 teams are just going to destroy each other, especially with the Pineapple roster that I've seen lately. If I think there might be a Jalen Penrose appearance. There might be a Pellegrin Vargas appearance. There might be a Luis Bertrand appearance. Like they might be pulling out all the stops for this tournament. If they have those guys available, Iceman and Dive both had better watch out.
Yeah, you know, I mean, the scales have been tipped pretty much in favor of Iceman for the entire VLA existence with this matchup here.
That particular rivalry, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, obviously we go well beyond the VLA, but at this time, you know, Iceman's been pretty much in control of this division, and I know that Pineapple doesn't like that. You know, there's a lot of pride on that team and being one of the most established teams in probably in
North American volleyball ever. I think they are. I think they're the New
Yeah.
England Patriots of the VLA. The dynasty
Yeah.
that they won on before the VLA existed was very New England Patriots like. Loy Ball is very clearly Tom Brady of volleyball. Like the parallels are so obvious, but now that Loy is not playing hardly ever anymore, and who can blame him at age 50? They've got work to do to rebuild that dynasty. And with some of the pieces that they've added, we saw Pellegrin Vargas last year. He's nasty, just coming off a season professionally in Greece. I'm looking at the roster. He will be there for sure. Jalen Penrose coming back from Switzerland. I think that just depends on his season if he can get back in time. Dalen Instanus in Sweden having a good year. Luis Bertrand in Puerto Rico, active pros. All those guys having good years. Bruno, who is amazing for them in Chicago. I think by far their best player in that tournament. This team is so scary. And I think this might be, I still don't think, just because of the way the standings are right now, that they can catch the Icemen in the Central Division to win the division, but they can really do some damage here. And I wouldn't count them out and feel like Cup playing at home later in May.
Yeah, one of the things that Pineapple has really missed since Jeff Pitek is not since is retired is that go-to opposite. And you know, I mean, what I can't think of a more talented opposite than to pull Jalen Penrose from unfortunately for Boston Balance, but you know, that's such a huge pickup for Team Pineapple. And I think that of anyone that is playing in the VLA that can compare to Jeff Pitek, Penrose is the one guy with the power to do that. And very, very intimidating guy up there, huge block, crushes the ball, great jump serve. I mean, he is the prototypical opposite.
That's an opposite. That's it.
and the guy, I mean, he's the Energizer Bunny too. They don't talk, you know, you see a lot of power. His stamina is amazing. Like, that guy has every single match that he's been involved in, he's played every single point. And since he's been involved with the VLA with Boston Bounce, every single match he was on that right side. And if he can do that with Team Pineapple, absolutely, they are a very dangerous team. And nothing against Griffin Shields, I think becomes the best opposite in the division.
I agree. I think he's got just one more gear in addition that you just get when you're an active overseas professional volleyball player. But you can never sleep on the Chicago Icemen. That is the gnarliest roster in Tier 1 top to bottom, in my opinion. They haven't lost to a Tier 1 team since LVC in the first event in VLA history. I think that's still the case.
First match they ever played, they lost. Yeah, they really
that was it.
That one.
Ever since then,
since then they have not lost to a Tier 1 team. So
yep.
You know, potentially if Team Pineapple does it this weekend. The only issue is Iceman's lost a bunch to the Tier 2 teams. So you know, I mean, hopefully, you know, and so Milwaukee Dive, obviously, you know, very, very talented team, and you know, they're definitely a team to be feared in this. So, like you said, I mean, this is going to be an absolute bloodbath. And I mean, this Chicago Central Division Cup obviously was the best event that we've ever put on. Now we're putting on 2 events, and every single match in these 2 events, amazing teams. And I mean, you can't ask for anything better. It's unreal what's happening right now with with the VLA.
Yeah, this Louisville event is going to be an absolute show. I wish I could be in two places at once just to feel the energy in that convention center, because you better believe, and the JVA loves the VLA. We have an awesome relationship with the Junior Volleyball Association. They love having us at events like this. They are going to do anything they can to spotlight the VLA matches that are going on and get all like the many thousands of junior players and their parents and their siblings or whatever. Everybody there is going to know that the VLA is there, and we're going to focus really hard on just the in-person event production of that. And we will have a way to present you all the games on YouTube after the fact. But I can't wait to see the growth that we have, like the digital focus in Buffalo, the in-person focus in Louisville. Having that all come together in the same weekend is going to be insane for the league. So a week from Friday, I'll be traveling out to Buffalo. The teams will all be on the move. We'll get together in two places at once, and we will crush those 2 weekends. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's going to be absolutely amazing.
So I think that just about does it for the show, ladies and gentlemen. I read about it an hour, slightly less long than usual, which is kind of nice for Vince and I. But thank you all for watching. Follow us on Instagram for sure. Make sure you join the YouTube channel as a member to watch all the matches at East Division Cup next weekend. But every match there will be streamed live. None of the matches in Louisville will be streamed live. They'll all be recorded, and we'll have a fun way to show you them after the fact. But we're super stoked to just dominate the landscape of American volleyball in multiple places for one weekend. And I'm sure that Vince and I will have a lot to talk about after that weekend, April 9th and 10th.
Yep, absolutely. And huge shout out to JVA for putting on this event for us and hosting us, and also our sponsors, Novice Clothing Company. Definitely give them a follow on their Instagram, and we appreciate everything that they do for us as well.
Yeah, I've got a novice shirt on right now. The stuff is tremendous. I'm excited to see my stuff from the online store. They did show up in the mail. Should be any day now.
All right.
All right. Thanks for watching, everyone. We will see you next time on Around the VLA. Have a great rest of your evening.